Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Bulletin and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Army Chief General Javed Bajwa says a peaceful Afghanistan means a peaceful region in general and a peaceful of Pakistan in particular. He said this during a meeting with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and UK Chief of Defence Staff General Nicholas Patrick Carter in Kabul. According to Pakistan's military media wing, the Army Chief said Pakistan will always support an Afghan-led peace process based on mutual consensus of all stakeholders. He said the recent developments in the Afghan peace process and matters related to bilateral defence cooperation were discussed in the meeting. President Ashraf Ghani has announced a 3-day ceasefire in Afghanistan after the Taliban did the same for the religious holiday of Eid. The announcements by the warring sides come after weeks of increasing violence in the country. Organizers have cancelled a right-wing Israeli Jerusalem Day march to mark the anniversary of the seizure of the parts of Jerusalem in the 1967 war. The cancellation comes after Hamas gave an ultimatum to Israel to withdraw its forces from Al-Aqsa Mosque. Meanwhile, the OIC has convened an emergency meeting on Tuesday to discuss Israeli aggression on Palestinians. Israeli forces have wounded over 300 Palestinians during the last 3 days as tensions mount over forced evictions of Palestinians. Iran has condemned an attack on its consulate in southern Iraqi city of Karbala during protests over the killing of an activist on Sunday. Ehab was active in the organization of anti-government protests that swept Iraq in October 2019. Protesters have blamed pro-Iranian militias for the killing of the activists. The UAE says it will bar entry for travelers from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal and Sri Lanka starting from the 12th of May to curb the spread of coronavirus. Meanwhile, the Malaysian Prime Minister has announced a nationwide lockdown as the country grapples with a fresh surge in infections. Globally, there are now more than 158 million infections and over 3.2 million deaths, including nearly 19,000 in Pakistan. And in cricket, Pakistan beat Zimbabwe by an innings and 147 runs in the final test to whitewash the two-match series. Shaheen Shah Afridi and Oman Ali took 5 wickets each, restricting Zimbabwe to 231 in their second innings. Abid Ali was declared man of the match, while pacer Hassan Ali was named a player of the series. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. Pakistan's Army Chief General Javed Bajwa says a peaceful Afghanistan means a peaceful region in general and a peaceful Pakistan in particular. He said this during a meeting with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and UK Chief of Defence Staff General Nicholas Patrick Carter in Kabul. According to Pakistan's military media wing, the Army Chief said Pakistan will always support an Afghan-led peace process based on mutual consensus of all stakeholders. It said the recent developments in the Afghan peace talks and matters related to bilateral ties were discussed in the meeting. The Afghan president thanked Pakistan for its sincere and positive role in the Afghan peace process. The ISPR said General Bajwa also met with the chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation of Afghanistan, Abdullah. He said the Director General of Inter-Services Intelligence, Lieutenant General Faz Hamid, accompanied General Bajwa during the visit. The Taliban and the Afghan government have declared a 3-day ceasefire across the country to mark this week's Eid al-Fitr holiday. In a tweet, a Taliban spokesman said the group's fighters have been instructed to halt all nationwide operations. An Afghan presidential palace statement quoted President Ghani as saying that he has ordered Afghan forces to match the ceasefire offer from Taliban. The announcement by the warring sides come after weeks of increasing violence in the country as foreign forces withdraw. 68 people, mostly schoolgirls, were killed and over 165 were wounded after bombings outside a school in Kabul on Saturday. The following day, 11 people were killed and 25 wounded after a bomb blew up in a bus in Zabul province. Organizers have cancelled a right-wing Israeli Jerusalem Day march to mark the anniversary of the seizure of the parts of Jerusalem in the 1967 war. The cancellation comes after Hamas gave an ultimatum to Israel to withdraw its forces from Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Israeli military has also suspended a major drill for a day in order to focus efforts on preparing for a possible escalation of violence. Meanwhile, the OIC has convened an emergency meeting on Tuesday to discuss the Israeli aggression on Palestinians. Israeli forces have wounded over 300 Palestinians during the last 3 days as tensions mount over forced evictions of Palestinians. Major global and regional powers have expressed concerns over escalation in violence and urged Israel to halt its expansionist policies. Iran has strongly condemned an attack on its consulate in southern Iraqi city of Karbala. Speaking to the media, Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh urged Baghdad to protect Iran's diplomatic missions in the country. He said a letter of protest has been submitted at the Iraqi embassy in Tehran. Khatibzadeh added that Iran expects the Iraqi government to fulfill its responsibilities in this regard. On Sunday, Iraqi protesters gathered outside the Iranian consulate in Karbala and set barricades ablaze. The protest was sparked by the killing of Iraqi activist Ihab al-Wazni by unknown assailants in Karbala. Iran has confirmed publicly for the first time that it is in talks with Saudi Arabia to de-escalate tensions. At a press briefing, Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh said Tehran will do what it can to resolve issues between the two sides. Khatibzadeh said de-escalation of tensions between the two Muslim countries is in the interest of both nations and the region. A Saudi Foreign Ministry official had told Reuters last week that talks between the rival countries were aimed at reducing regional tensions. However, he had cautioned that it was too early to judge the outcome and Riyadh wanted to see verifiable deeds. The UAE says it will bar entry for travelers from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal and Sri Lanka starting from the 12th of May to curb the spread of coronavirus. Meanwhile, the Malaysian Prime Minister has announced a nationwide lockdown as the country grapples with a fresh surge in infections. India has recorded more than 366,000 COVID-19 infections and over 3,700 deaths overnight.
The COVID-19 crisis in India is worsening, with infection rates in some parts of the country are soaring. The positivity rate in the coastal state of Goa has surged to more than 50%. Experts have warned that the situation in neighboring Nepal is set on the same track, with infection rates running high. Brazil recorded nearly 39,000 more confirmed cases in the past 24 hours and over 1,000 fatalities from COVID-19. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to reveal plans to lift parts of the COVID-19 lockdown today. Qatar also decided to gradually lifting coronavirus-related measures in 4 phases, starting the first phase on May 28. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 3.3 million lives, with the infections tally approaching 158 million.
In Pakistan, 78 more have died from COVID-19 overnight as the death count approaches 19,000. The Health Ministry said more than 3,400 people contracted the virus over the past 24 hours. It said the countrywide tally of confirmed cases has crossed 861,000, out of which over 762,000 patients have recovered. The number of active cases has declined to 80,000, with over 4,900 critical. According to the Health Ministry, the positivity rate of new cases is 9.12%. US President Joe Biden will be attending a virtual Eastern European NATO summit to be held in Romania today. Romanian President Klaus Iohannis said the summit will focus on security in the Black Sea region and the Ukraine. Iohannis said he is glad to welcome Joe Biden to the Bucharest 9 summit. A group of European countries on the eastern edge of NATO will be participating. The summit aims at coordinating the security positions of participating countries in the Eastern European region. At the end of the summit, the 9 states will publish a collective statement on the security of the Black Sea and related issues in the Ukraine. In the U.S. state of Colorado, at least 7 people have been killed after a gunman opened fire at a birthday party. Police say the shooting happened just after midnight in a mobile home park on the east side of Colorado Springs. In a statement, the police said the suspect killed himself after fatally shooting the victims, including his girlfriend, but he did not fire on traumatized children who were present at the occasion. The police say the motive behind the shooting is yet to be determined. The incident is the latest in the resurgence of mass shootings in the U.S. and comes a day after 4 people were killed in Baltimore. 4 people have been wounded in a stabbing attack at a supermarket in New Zealand's southern Dunedin city. 3 of those stabbed have sustained life-threatening injuries. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said there was not enough evidence that links the act to terrorism. Ardern says such attacks are, however, hugely concerning, while sympathizing with the wounded and their families. New Zealand police detained the alleged assailant immediately after the attack. Police said the motive for the assault was not yet known. In Somalia, 6 police officers have been killed in a suicide bomb attack in capital Mogadishu claimed by the Al-Shabaab group. Police said that 6 others have been injured in the blast. Since 2008, the Al-Shabaab group seeks to overthrow Somalia's internationally backed central government. It carries out regular gun and bomb attacks in Mogadishu and elsewhere in the country. At least 5 people have been killed after a boat carrying 45 Europe-bound migrants capsized off Libya. The UN Migration Agency says 40 migrants have been rescued and returned back to shore. It said the boat was among 9 others carrying more than 700 migrants intercepted by the Libyan Coast Guard. Earlier this month, at least 11 Europe-bound migrants drowned when a rubber dinghy carrying 24 people capsized off Libya. In recent years, Libya has emerged as the main transit point for migrants fleeing war and poverty in Africa and the Middle East. In Myanmar, despite continuing violence against anti-coup protests, activists have yet again taken to the streets against the military rulers. In Dawai, residents organized a white shirt campaign in protest at the military regime. Meanwhile, another Myanmar poet, Akhet T, whose work declared resistance to the ruling junta, has died in army detention. His family said T was severely tortured and his body returned with the organs removed. UN Rapporteur Tom Andrews condemned the incident and expressed solidarity with the Burmese under siege. The Assistance Association for Political Prisoners activist group says the military has killed over 780 civilians since the February 1st coup. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. South Korean President Moon Jae-in says he's looking forward to North Korea's response to engagement efforts. He was speaking at an event held to mark his 4th year in presidency. President Moon reiterated that Seoul will do everything in its power to return to the days of engagement. The president said he will not be impatient and will wait for Pyongyang's response. He termed his final year in office the last opportunity to make progress, adding, "It is time to take action." Moon's remarks come ahead of his first summit with US President Joe Biden in Washington on May the 21st. He is expected to push the US to seek engagement despite North Korea is showing few signs of interest. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said the EU is ready for talks with Russia. He was speaking at an EU foreign ministers meeting in Brussels to review multiple issues, including the EU's policy towards Russia. Maas added that the EU should not go out of the way in advocating the alleged human rights abuses in Moscow. Moreover, Slovakia's Foreign Minister Ivan Košok said the EU should discontinue the negative trend of ties with Moscow. Košok added there are fundamental issues, but they do not wish further escalation between Russia and the EU. The U.S. government has issued an emergency legislation after the country's largest pipeline was hit by a ransomware cyber attack. The pipeline carrying 45% of the East Coast's diesel supply was completely knocked off and still remained shut down. The Department of Transportation issued a temporary waiver enabling fuel to be transported by road. A total of 18 states have been granted the waiver for transportation of gasoline, diesel, jet fuel and other petroleum products. However, it is not enough to match the pipeline's capacity. The hackers allegedly took almost 100 GB of data hostage and are demanding a ransom. Thousands of participants from across the world participated in a race for those who can't run. Details about the history's largest run in this report.
Thousands from around the world, including both runners and wheelchair users, took part in the history's largest run. The Wings for Life charity run was organized to raise vital funds to find a cure for spinal cord injury. According to the organizers, over 184,000 people from 151 countries participated in the global run. At 11 GMT, the participants began their run from wherever they were in the world, using a phone app to record the distance they covered.
So here we go, start. 3,
2, 1, let's go! It's breathtaking. This year's Wings for Life World Run raised 4.1 million euros. And this is so important. And I want to know everyone that with your participation you give spinal cord injured people hope, you give them a perspective, and with your participation, with your help, we can continue to fund brilliant scientists, and everyone together we will have the power, we will have the force to find a cure for spinal cord injury.
Sweden's Aaron Anderson won the men's title for the third time, covering a distance of 66.8 kilometers. While Russian Nina Zarina took her third consecutive women's title with a distance of 66.1 kilometers. Some of the participants were people who had suffered spinal cord injuries. They participated using walkers, crutches and wheelchairs to cover as much distance as they could, whether that was a few meters or many miles.
In Bolivia's city of Cochabamba, local companies have developed a pollution-free food delivery chain using electric bikes. More in this report.
Cochabamba of Bolivia is one of South America's most polluted cities. Single-use plastic has skyrocketed in the city. Different apps including Quantum Motors, Kangaroo Go, others are teaming together to provide green delivery service in the city.
These packages decompose in 90 to 180 days. They are self-assembled and manufactured with vegetable-based inks. The objective of this production is to replace single-use plastics.
Food is packaged in compostable containers. All companies hope to build a greener future through the delivery service.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. A small minke whale has been freed after it became stranded along the River Thames in southwest London. Hunters gathered at Richmond Lock in Weir as the whale became stuck on the lock's boat rollers. It was initially hosed down by a man at the river's edge. Rescuers from the Royal National Lifeboat Institution later arrived on the scene to save the animal. It was successfully moved to a safer location nearly 4 hours later. Elon Musk's SpaceX is planning to send a satellite to the moon paid under a contract entirely with the cryptocurrency Dogecoin. Musk tweeted the SpaceX will launch the Doge 1 satellite next year. Musk said the Dogecoin will be the first cryptocurrency and the first meme in space. The Canadian company Geometric Energy Corporation that owns the satellite says it will be launched in the first quarter of 2022. The satellite will be sent using the Falcon 9 launch vehicle for data collection on the moon. After Musk's announcement, the value of Dogecoin went up by $0.58 apiece. The U.S. stocks have opened mixed amid strong gains in energy stocks, building on the benchmark's recent strong rally. This led Nasdaq Composite to fall nearly 2% down at open, while the S&P 500 opened nearly 0.25% lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average traded over 0.5% higher. Meanwhile, the oil prices have fallen as one of the largest pipelines in the U.S. remains closed after a cyber attack. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now with the latest updates. You can follow us on social media at Indus News.